The International Monetary Fund is saying, and they've raised the alarm bells for the global economy. The IMF has cut its forecast for global growth next year to 2.7% from what was 2.9% as they saw it in the month of June.
From here on, do you feel this is the beginning of an impending recession, the worst ever, like it's been predicted by some?
The pandemic and then the war in Ukraine, this new decade is clearly off to a bad start, and things could get worse. In recent months, we have been reporting about the risk of a recession, and with every passing day, the projections are getting more grim.
Let's move on now and talk about the Indian economy. Yesterday, we had told you about the IMF's latest projections, the warning of an increasing risk of a global recession. India has emerged as a bright spot in this assessment now, but there are challenges for India.
Hi everyone, the world is talking about recession. In this episode, I'll take you through what is a recession, why the world is predicting that a recession is coming, how it can affect us, and what can we do to protect ourselves. A recession is a significant, widespread, and prolonged dip in economic activity. In simple numbers, 2 quarters of negative growth in GDP. Now, recession often results in decline in consumer demand, decline in employment, and an overall decline in economic activity. Statistically speaking, a recession is often predicted by an inverted yield curve. Now, what the hell is a yield curve? Simply put, it is the plot between maturity on the x-axis and interest rate on the y-axis. A good yield curve is when an investor gets higher interest rate for being invested in for a longer period of time. For example, you are getting 5% interest or return for a 2-year period and a 7% interest for a 5-year period. Now the shape of the yield curve, which can signal a possible recession, is inverted. In this situation, the investment in a short term gives a higher return than a long-term investment. Now, why an inverted yield curve is an indicator of recession? Because everyone thinks that a slowdown or recession is on the way, and thus they invest more on the long duration investments, making the demand for long-term investments or bonds go higher, and thus the return or interest rate lower. A simple example of demand versus supply. Currently, the yield curve is inverted from 6 months out to 10 years, but still now, there is no inversion in very short and long ends of the curve. Now, how does a major recession affect our economy? It can result in massive layoffs or job cuts, and can also result in business bankruptcy. The real estate sector is also badly hit, as there is an overall decrease in large spendings and prices may fall or not grow at all. Moreover, bank loans become harder to get. Another major effect of recession is rising inflation, resulting into a large-scale slowdown or decrease in demand of goods and services, creating a ripple effect and affecting all of us eventually. So are we headed towards a big recession? A Bloomberg survey report states that there is an increase in the odds of recession. It rose to double the chances from the same survey 6 months ago. However, the US President Joe Biden believes that there will be no recession, despite the traditional criteria of 2 consecutive quarters of decline in US, maybe because of low unemployment figures. He believes there will be a recession, but it will be a mild one. Now, talking about India, there is a cause of relaxation as India's growth forecast stands at 6.8% for 2022 and fiscal deficit at 32.6%. Although there is a cut in growth projections from 7.4% to 6.8%, this number is still quite good compared to 1.6% of US and 3.2% of China. World Bank chief economist of South Asia, Hans Timmer, has also said that India has done relatively well compared to other countries in South Asia and in general the rest of the world. Now, to remain one of the world's fastest growing economies, India has smartly overcome these challenges. Firstly, 85% of oil used in India is imported, and thus As oil producing nations will cut production, we will have to deal with our prices. Secondly, the global slowdown can result in decrease in India's exports. And lastly, to better the unemployment levels presently at 7.9%. To cut the long story short, India as well as the world needs to keep their guards up and be prepared for an eventual slowdown. Factors such as Europe's dependence on Russia's gas supply, exodus of Chinese manufacturing, and increase in unemployment will have to be dealt with. We, as global citizens, will have to be patient and be prepared. Start saving, reskilling or upskilling ourselves, and take proper guards like insurance. After all, patience is not simply the ability to wait, it's how we behave while we are waiting.